Okay. Hello everyone, and I'm Marcia Edel, and I am the product and founder product designer for KiwiWrite Math. I'm a parent entrepreneur, so I created this product to fill the need I saw for more math tools to help students that had difficulty with handwriting, and how it impacted them being able to complete their math assignments. I just kind of a little logistics to start. I just want to tell you, KiwiWrite.com, our information site is here. And this has like a tab that has all our product tutorials in it. And there's some information on school pricing and licensing and general product. And you can get to the app website by clicking here. But if your students are using it, the actual app is at go.kiwiwrite.com. You don't know this extra one. So for them to just use it to not see our marketing things, they should use the go.kiwiwrite.com. So it is a web app, so it runs on anything with a browser, Chromebooks, iPads, laptops, desktops. We do have a minimum screen size, so it doesn't actually run on phones. There are 30-day trials available for students to trial. We also offer free subscriptions to assistive technologists, occupational therapists, other types of evaluators. So if you'd like one of those, the process is create a free trial and then just send us contact us, saying who you are. And we add that from here. For schools, if they have Google credentials, we recommend that. The username, email, sign-up method does require that an email be received and with a verification link. So sometimes in schools, that's sometimes an issue. And we have Microsoft available for if a school's set up for that. So I'm going to go ahead and sign on and just do a demo, and I'll talk about types of students while I'm doing the demo. There's just some extra steps because this account is Google integrated. So this came up with a bunch of math because that it automatically displays the last thing I created. So I just had it. I just wanted to give kind of a preview of some of the things it can do. Each of these in here is like a KiwiWrite problem. You can move problems around. Each problem is individual, but this is written on top of a PDF. So one of the kind of strengths of KiwiWrite is that you can import PDFs either from your device, or we've recently added Google integration. So this was taken from Classroom. That's why there's a turn-in button, and then write right on top of it. I just wanted to preview that. So I'm going to go kind of, back a step now, tell you what it's like when you first create an account. When you first set up an account, you first get a welcome screen, and then you will get this screen that talks about keyboard level. So the KiwiWrite math kind of on-screen keyboard has 4 versions, which are based on the student's math level, because one of our goals for dysgraphia students and disability students in general is to not have visual clutter, not to be visually overwhelming. For the students that are younger, we try to just give them the symbols that they need. Like the high school one will have all kinds of symbols. I'll show you that in a moment. When you go to a new level or open it, it will often just create a blank file here. I'm just going to open an example one just to speed things along here since we have limited time. So this is level 2. And all of the level 2, and you know what? A little concern, having a little bit of issues with the mouse. I wonder. Sometimes there are some. This is the Microsoft Teams one, right? I once had some issues with Teams actually interfering with some of the mouse controls of KiwiWrite. I don't know if there's any like screen sharing settings. I will see what it's going, but it's not. I think I am running into that because when I click on this, it should switch for that. And I think it is Teams oriented. Is there any, can I ask, is there any setting in Teams that has to do with like allowing that, Annabelle, that like you have remote control or anything like that?
I'm actually
Because,
not sure. David or Maureen, would you know?
right, because I remember there was once a Teams meeting that it interfered with some of the controls. I'm sorry, I didn't realize this would be a Teams meeting. I should have checked this before.
I'm not aware of
I
anything.
can kind of work around it. I think it just had some things, but I seem to be running into that. Because it's like it takes away some of our mouse clicks and we can't do everything that we normally do. And it's a team specific thing. So well, I will just continue and see, you know, what
Yeah,
it
I think
with or
just
what it not.
continue.
Yeah,
As long as people get, you know, the gist.
Right,
of,
yeah. Yeah. So so anyway, so each KiwiWrite one problem is a separate space, and you create a problem. Actually, let me increase the size here. Okay, you start a problem by just clicking on the screen. And then you can either use a mouse to click on the on-screen keys, or you can, you know, tap if you have a touch screen, or you can use your keyboard for anything that's similar. You can also create a new problem by clicking on this new problem button, which will create one right below it. And then, you know, the strength of KiwiWrite is that it is lets you do problems that are aligned. So addition problem, you know, when I clicked a return, then it created another row that was right lined up below. If I click this line segment tool, it's going to draw a little line below it. And then let me do instead, if I was going to do a subtraction problem that say needed regrouping, let me subtract 17 this time. If you have a problem that you need to add a row or a column around here, if that is one of the points that might seem confusing when you first look at it, but it's actually, you know, very easy to do. All you need to do is to move this L-shaped cursor is always where the program will write the next symbol. So you just move the cursor, which you can do in several ways. The on-screen key will move it, so then that will automatically add a row there. You could use the keyboard keys, or another way is if you click right around, like the, you know, the area right around a problem, then it will also create one of those. So see, this is that is a problem. See, that the thing that it's not doing, when I click here, it should move the cursor. So that's one of the things that is not working with this. Maybe for the recording, I might be able to replace it with a non-Microsoft Teams one, or something like that. So here, well, yeah, this is really actually going to be a problem. When you click, oh, okay, I can do it. Like, okay, I just need to use it. I just need,
when you're doing the problem, does it automatically do it for the child, or is it waiting for the child to put in the answer?
Yeah, so it does not do any calculations. So the purpose of KiwiWrite is to just let them write the math. So it doesn't, this is just kind of drawing the math, so it does not do the calculations, and the student needs to, you know, do all the steps that they would do if they were writing the problem. So they need to move, you know, they need to say, okay, I want to do a cross off on 2, so they need to select the 2. Now, I guess I just need to use the arrow keys and not clicking. That's the thing that's not working on the Microsoft Teams. So then they can, you know, use a cross off here, and sorry, I'm just so used to clicking. Then it will, I'm sorry, you know, tech problems just kind of confusing me. It will allow them to lay one out. So, and you can, another thing you can do is you can also add text. And if you type, it will come out in text, but it's not going to be aligned correctly. So if you use the ABC key, then it will align it as text. So I was using I'm working on a blank page, but if you want to have a PDF, I'll show you the first way of doing that is you can import it from your device. When you create a new file, you have a choice of a blank one, or you can import something that's in the device. Now, if I click on this, it's going to show me whatever the open file dialog is for my device, which, is probably going to be kind of complicated on that one. This is a Windows desktop, but if you were on a Chromebook, you could access a Google file that way, or anything that you had configured that way. I'm just going to drag and drop something here. So then it's just putting a picture of the PDF. This is not editable, you cannot edit the background. You can zoom in to make it easier to see there. And then if you have import a file, you rename files by coming up to the corner here. And then students do need to save click. We do automatic saves once per minute to prevent any, major problems. But we don't do constant ones because of the performance. And then if they, to turn this type of work in, they would need to download it as a PDF. That's going to go wherever there's based on their system configuration. If they're on a Chromebook, there is a setting that you can put it in your Google Drive directly. This is just going to put it in my default download one, and iPad's going to give you all the iPad options.
Marcia,
Yes.
Emma is asking, can you show again how you put in the grid to answer the question?
Sure. Yeah, so when the grid will, let me open a different type of worksheet that's, here, let me open a new worksheet that is I can give a better example of that. So whenever you create a problem, actually, I'm going to show you first, there is a special option here that lets you add workspace or add extra space if you're within the PDF. This is the one thing you can do to alter the actual PDF. So every time you create a problem, you just click somewhere. So I click there if I wanted to start this problem. I clicked on, I clicked here, and then I just press return. I press an arrow to get to add an extra column. And then I can, well, I can't click there because of the Teams thing. And so on. And you can change the font size of the problem up here. Or, and I could add more white space if I wanted to continue this problem. Does that answer the question for that?
Emma, do you want to type yes or no into the chat?
Yeah.
And Marcia, I just had another question too. Yeah. Oh yes, Emma says yes, thank you. Okay. Is this the teacher view or the pupil view, or is it the same thing?
Yeah, this is for the student. So each student would have their individual account. We don't have teacher accounts at this point. We're, looking into, perhaps adding that next year. But the so teachers can have free subscriptions so that they can learn to use it, but teachers can't directly see into student accounts at this point. So this is like how the student would work in it.
So does the teacher upload the problems, or how does that happen?
Right. Well, it is through you do need to get a PDF to the student somehow. So the one way is if they had a PDF that they could access on their device. So if they're in a Chromebook and it was in their drive, that's way. I'll go ahead and show if you're a Google school, we've added Google Drive integration. So here I'm in Google Classroom here. And here is a copy of an assignment. This assignment in Google Classroom, I don't know how, who's familiar with it or not, but teachers can send files, either make a copy for a student or view or edit. You need to send it their own copy, so KiwiWrite has edit access. Otherwise, we will ignore the multiple KiwiWrites. It's just because I have test systems. Then you can do an open with in it, and it will open that file. It will probably take forever and a half to open on a video one here.
Yeah, that totally makes sense though now.
Yeah, it's always kind of slow, but if I try to only maybe open one file from Google during a video because of how long it tends to take. But if I'll just say ahead, while it's getting there someday, if you're in a Google Classroom, oh, there it is. So since it was from Google Classroom, it has this turn-in button. So now I happen to switch to another, higher level. So that's probably a higher level than we would really do this problem. But I'll just put in one thing here to show. So then if I clicked the turn-in, which is also going to take a little while, that's going to save it, and it's also going to sync it to that Google Drive file that is associated with Classroom. And that is because I am signed into multiple accounts. It's giving me this. If a student was signed into just one account, it wouldn't do that. So it brought it back to the Classroom page. So then they could, click turn in. If you were instead using Google Drive, there's also this open with option, and it would also get it directly into KiwiWrite that way. If you are in Google Drive, there won't be a turn-in button, but when you click the save file, it's going to save back to that Google Drive file also. If you're not using Google currently, then you do have to get the PDF to the students somehow. As I said, it's kind of, a teacher accounts that you can see directly into it. It's, something we hope to add in the next year. Let me show you a little bit about the upper levels of how you do problems in the upper levels. So this is our high school level here. And you can see there's, lots of keys here. I realize that I have not yet explained that there is every key that has a little triangle here has extra symbols available. You can access those by pressing and holding down. You can also set that to a double click if you prefer. And so, the upper levels, we have like all the trig signs, here that are available. We actually have up through, even up through pre-calculus symbols here. And so I want to point out that this format is different than the grid format. You see, it's not aligned that way. That's just kind of out of need of this type of math. Naturally, when you're writing math in older, it's more of a line format, but it's still organized into problems that you can place in the same way, and you can, you know, increase and decrease. So an important thing to understand here is how you deal with these keys that have these little A's and B's in them. Those are symbols of types that need some more instructions to the student to use. So I'll just start with an example of clicking a square root here and a number. And here is the point that the program needs to know that I'm done entering inside this square root sign. And in KiwiWrite, there's two ways of doing that. It's either you click this green button, which is like go on to the next part, or you can also press the keyboard enter as a shortcut, which may be, you know, more familiar to students. And then fractions work the same way, but they're two parts. So, you know, press the numerator and then green and the denominator, or enter sign. In addition, for older students, they are likely to want to use our keyboard shortcuts. There's a collection of them here. So I'm just going to demonstrate, like, if I was just typing, you know, using the clicking on the keyboard. It's great for adaptive devices and a lot of things. You know, the keyboard is faster. So if I just typed plus and Alt F is the keyboard shortcut there. And then, you know, we have some editing tools, like there's a duplicate line tool. So then I can, well, actually, I can't click there because of the Microsoft ones, but normally I could click in the middle there. And then when you know, edit, then it's going to just, you know, shift over and adjust the whole problem. And you can create complex equations. You know, it's not just limited to simple ones. You can put, you know, fractions inside of, you know, fractions or whatever, you know, complicated thing, whatever comes up. And for each one of these, you just press the green button or press enter to get to the next one. You don't have to really worry about where, you know, you are in the problem. But, you know, if you go back to edit the problem, you know, the whole problem is going to adjust for you. So kind of as an, you know, example here of you know, some more advanced math. You know, here's some more advanced things you could write with that. You know, or like here's a worksheet that has, you know, like which has the exponents and things like that. And now I just switched to level 3, which is our kind of, well, what we call middle school here. That's like, I don't know, ages 9 to 13 or so. Oh, I'm sorry, I need to actually change levels to make it a blank one. So this level has something unique to it, that the default format is this line format, but you can also choose to create grid problems, and you can move between them by using these keys here. So because that age of student might be doing, you know, quite a variety of different types of problems. If I click, you know, between these, we'll go back to the exponent format. Let's see, I have, you know, there are some special over in the preferences here. There are a bunch of special options to be aware of. The preferences are things students probably wouldn't change, like you would probably set for the student. But if they needed larger key sizes over here, like low vision or poor coordination, we have those. You know, there's some higher contrast colors. We work well on eye gaze devices. This enable double click is needed for eye gaze devices to substitute for the single click. This last one, I guess I had that on before. When I did the ABC, you saw it come up in a dialog box. If you don't have this clicked and you're on a Windows laptop here, then it's going to enter it letter by letter. But if you want to use like system voice dictation for just the text entry, you can do that by selecting that option. The preferences also had choices on the font size and spacing and such as that for when they first started. So I feel like I think I'm, should I show you more, or I'd like to ask if there's questions first before.
There is one question in the chat from Rachel who's saying, this looks great. Is it approved to use by UK exam boards?
We have not checked into that yet. So I guess the answer would be no. I would be happy to try to evaluate that project over the summer. Is there anyone that might be able to give me any hints of how to start that project?
Maureen might
have.
I'm
just,
I know that
trying to look it up myself actually, and I can't find anything that relates to it specifically. Does it need to run using the internet?
So we do have a test mode. So you do have to log in. It's a web app, so you have to log in the internet, and anything, if you're opening a file, creating a new file, anything basically, with these files, actions, or the preferences requires internet. But you can turn off the internet once you've opened the file. So you could import a test file and then turn off the internet, and they could do all the math. And then if you exported it to a local device, then none of the math entry is dependent on the internet. So that's basically will work in an offline mode. I know here there's also
like it might be possible. I'll take that up with JCQ and see if I can find out some more, and then I'll get back to both you and obviously Annabelle.
Yeah, I know that here the testing boards, we have 50 states and there's 50 different sets of policies, so it's pretty complicated. And they just don't really want to talk to vendors or tiny vendors, or at least, at my scale, I don't have the connections. But it is our aim to make it so that it is there. I know there's some other things, some programs that will lock your window as the only, so they can't switch tabs, put it in a headless one. And so, we're also looking to see if there's anything else we need to support, for that. So we do really want to work on, getting those approvals for this summer. I guess you're on a little later schedule. Have you passed standardized testing for this year?
No, it's in May and June, but for any student to be allowed to use it, they would have to have their application in long before now. So it wouldn't be suitable for current students, but going forward it might well be. So I will try and find out more.
Maureen usually does a session for us on JCQ requirements in our back to school term, which starts in September. So maybe Maureen will have found out by then, and because it looks like a really it looks really useful.
Right. Yeah. And I'm sorry. I mean, I'm sorry I didn't think about when I think that I just didn't see that it was Teams when I forgot. It was long ago there was once, and there's, as I said, I've had Teams ones that work okay, but there was once, a year ago I had this, it's oh no, there's some setting that sometimes,
there do seem to be some glitches with Teams at the moment.
So I'm sorry, it really kind of rattled me, and I'm
Marcia,
sorry for the kind of poor quality demo because of that, but normally normally you can click. We do well, I can't. I have here also just an example of an algebra sheet. So it's on sometimes you can, in level 3, it's great to have for simple algebra, because then you can put it up in a line format, or if they have the type of problem here that you'd rather line up in rows and columns, you can do that too. But
Marcia, I'm aware now that it's 4 o'clock. So I'm just wondering if anybody else has any questions for Marcia, or we we'll leave it there. And Marcia, we will put this recording up, but obviously if you want to send through another recording, you can as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that because you mentioned a little bit earlier that you've actually got another recording of the maths being worked out properly without the glitches. Did you say you've got something like that?
Well, I have to think about whether I have something like the right length of time, but I mean, I think I might. I mean, I could just, literally just record one. It probably would be good to have a half-hour one. I mean, it wouldn't have the, back and forth, but I have done some other webinars. I can see if I, have a recording, but it would be a good, useful thing for me to have, like a half-hour format.
That'd be
that's
great.
Suitable to that. So I'd be happy to just I have a Zoom account. I could just record one or something. If you think, I'll talk to Edel
we've got another
question
here just from Rachel asking, could you show the accessibility options again, please?
Okay, sure. So in preferences, accessibility, one is we had a lot of requests for kind of low vision. It will change the key size because you can change the display size by the zoom, and you can change won't let me select it because of the glitch, but you can always change the font size, but that lets you change the size, and and this, as I said, this will let you change the ABC to be able to dictate higher contrast colors. It's just a little bit higher contrast. So some, vision students might have a little bit easier time with that. And then in the general accessibilities, I guess I did not mention, if you want to use Google, you need to first enable it, and you enable it by clicking this integrate with Google, and that's going to show you those permissions that are required there's also a choice of putting the keyboard on the right side, which, if you're on an iPad, that might be, helpful for those. And, you can change the cursor darker, which is useful for some, and you can also display up. Now I'm really big there. So you can change it so that it has a little bit of color, which helps, with some students there.
Rachel, does that answer your question?
Right. We do not support adaptive switch, and we're definitely a long way away from being able to be read by like an OCR kind of program at this point.
Right. Well, thank you, Marcia. I don't see any more questions in the chat, and I don't see anyone raising their hand or anything, so we might just leave it there. Yes, I'll get this recording up by early next week.
Okay.
Sorry, well, there was one other question. Someone's just put another one in the chat.
Sorry, we've got another one then. That is, are you able to tint the page color?
Not at this time. Again, on our wish list, we're kind of a little company, so still building that. But yeah, we have heard that, or I do understand, for some students, that it would be visually easier to have that type of thing.
Something to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks very much, Marcia. I think we will really leave it there now. And so if anybody does have any questions for Marcia, you can always email me and I'll send them on to Marcia, and we'll get this recording up next week. So thanks everybody for joining this afternoon.